Hello, everyone. Happy Mother's Day to you all the mothers anyway. We are continuing on with our WrestleMania rebooking series, keeping up with the Sunday schedule. We are now currently on WrestleMania 29, or as it was marketed as WrestleMania New York, New Jersey. I don't know, even though again it was a pretty weird marketing thing because technically they were in New Jersey, but they had more of a New York vibe to the show because they had the Statue of Liberty theme in the middle of the ring, and the stage was set to like the New York Bridge or something. Um, so yeah, WrestleMania 29 from 2013. I actually watched this one live on pay-per-view. And funny story, I went to my dad's house to go watch this with my cousins, and my dad had to work that night, so he didn't originally plan on ordering it on pay-per-view. Yes, this is back years ago when we had to actually order it on pay-per-view for like $60 or so. So he didn't plan on ordering it, but we pretty much convinced him to not only wake him up from his sleep to pay the cable bill to order it, and he didn't even watch the show. So yeah, apologies to you, old man, or maybe not. So yeah. Anyway, this WrestleMania is considered by many to be one of the most underwhelming ones, and I can honestly see why. Because if you look at the card, most of it doesn't really feel like a WrestleMania. Most of these matches probably could have took place on like a random episode of Raw or SmackDown. Not None of these matches really screamed out. Maybe like one or two of them really screamed out WrestleMania. I mean, I do like the whole aesthetic and the whole vibe from the show. Like, I like the whole outdoor. I love the outdoor WrestleMania, any outdoor event. They just hit different, and I like especially like how it goes from the show starts in the daytime and then like an hour or so later it's already getting dark and evening. I like that. I like the whole stage they had going on. I liked the theme song they had to this show, not the Diddy one, the other one, Bones by Young Guns, I think it was called. That was really good. It just had that nice dark aesthetic vibe to it, but at the same time, it just didn't really feel like WrestleMania. Um, so yeah, if you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, well, that's what I'm going to tell you right now. So as usual, let's go ahead and let's see what the WWE actually gave us on that day. Starting off on the pre-show, they had Wade Barrett defending the Intercontinental title against The Miz. If I remember correctly, I think both these guys were feuding over because they both had one of those direct-to-video WWE movies they're both in. So they kind of like were feeding off of that. If I'm not mistaken, I think so. And that led to The Miz winning the Intercontinental title on the pre-show. I've always been a fan of The Miz, but I've always liked him better as a heel because he just plays a heel so much good. He's just like a natural. He has that naturally prick douchebag vibe to him, so he plays it off pretty well. The whole "I'm better than you," he does it really good. As a baby face, he's like, I don't feel like he was really as great as he could be. I mean, they just like that for some people are just naturally born to be heel. Some are just naturally babyface, and the Miz, of course, is just natural at being a heel. So I think he's better off as a heel. Obviously, hello there. So yeah, so going off onto the main show, we kicked things off with a six-man tag team match. It was a team of Sheamus, Ryback, and the Big Show. Excuse me, Sheamus, Randy Orton, and the Big Show taking on the Shield. Now, of course, the Shield had just debuted. This was probably like a few months after the debut of the Shield. They're like one of the hottest teams at the time. Of course, I loved all three members of the Shield: Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns. I was a fan of all three. So it was pretty cool, to see their entrance in the grand WrestleMania scheme of it all. Of course, this is around the time where they were just pretty much just feuding with all the three random baby faces main eventers at the time. So I think the month prior at Elimination Chamber, they faced off against Sheamus, I think Sheamus, John Cena, and Ryback. I think it was. So this was just another mixture of another top three upper main eventers. We had Sheamus, Randy Orton, and the Big Show taking on the Shield. Of course, the Shield won in their WrestleMania debut. If I'm not mistaken, I think Big Show turned on Randy Orton during or after the match. I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure it happened. It's been a while, but I'm pretty sure Big Show did one of his many, 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 many heel face turns during the match. Up next, we had Mark Henry defeating Ryback. Again, this is another match that probably could have been better off on like Raw or SmackDown. This is around the time when Ryback was getting like that big push, and the crowd was like really behind him at the time. And I think he probably could have done with all that momentum he had, probably had a better spot on this card, which I will get to later. Yeah, he just had like a random match against Mark Henry. The match ended when Ryback tried to do the self sock on Mark Henry, and he I guess couldn't get him up, but Mark Henry fell and pinned the match. So it was pretty much a fluke win for Mark Henry. Um, yeah, it was just there. Next up, we had the tag team championships. The team of Team Hell No, Kane and Daniel Bryan, defending against the team of Dolph Ziggler and Big E. This was actually Big E's first match on the main roster, coming up from NXT. I think like a couple months before this. So it was, again, another match that probably could have been better on like Raw or SmackDown. And I guess that's pretty much the whole theme here. Like I said, this didn't really feel like a WrestleMania card when you really look at it. Of course, Kane and Daniel Bryan won. Team Hell No was probably one of the best things going on at the time in the WWE around this time. So yeah. Up next was Fandango versus Chris Jericho. This is pretty much built around the whole thing of nobody could pronounce Fandango's name right. This is why he didn't compete, storyline wise in the ring. So this was again technically his debut main roster match as well against Chris Jericho, who had made one of his many return comebacks. Um, so again, another just mid card match that probably again could have been better on Raw or SmackDown. Fandango got the win in his WrestleMania main roster debut match. Yeah. Up next was the World Heavyweight Championship, in which Alberto Del Rio defended against Jack Swagger. As I mentioned before, I was never really a fan of Alberto Del Rio. I always thought he was boring. And I just never liked the guy. I didn't really care for him. And then to go against a random push for Jack Swagger, because Jack Swagger had mostly been like a mid card, upper mid card at best heel, and just randomly come back and just get thrown into the main event world title picture at WrestleMania of all places. Yeah, a lot of people weren't buying it. So and then he didn't even get his entrance. His entrance wasn't even shown on the live event. They played the promo video, and then when they came back, Jack Swagger was in the ring already. I'm like, who the hell does a jobber entrance at WrestleMania? That's how you know he pretty much probably should have been in that position to begin with. And of course, Alberto Del Rio won by submission. And I think if the rumors are correct, Jack Swagger was actually supposed to win this match and become champion, but there was some I don't know if he got arrested or suspended for like DOI or something like that. It has something to do with that. So that kind of killed his push. I remember reading that and on the websites and everything by that time. So yeah, this was basically again another random Raw SmackDown mid card match that was thrown in as a world championship match at WrestleMania. And of course, around this time, this is around the time when the world title wasn't really as high importance as the WWE title was. It's around the time when they were just throwing it on random higher mid carders. It was basically a glorified IC championship at this point, which is pretty much why they retired it at the end of that year. Up next was probably the best match on the show. CM Punk, my personal favorites, against The Undertaker. Do I believe CM Punk should have been the main event? Yes, but we'll get to that again. And this was probably Undertaker's last good WrestleMania match. Because, as you know, he lost the streak the following year. And then after that, he had a couple of stinkers at WrestleMania. So this is probably where the real streak of Undertaker matches ended, because for the last few years, they've been having good match after good match after match of the night the last few WrestleManias. So, of course, him and CM Punk put on a great match here. I love the build up to this match. I love CM Punk as a heel. I think one of my favorite points during this feud, the build up to it, even though it probably wasn't uh, resonate well with others, was when Paul Bearer had passed away. They did the memoriam. Undertaker came out and CM Punk interrupted. And I hate to see anybody die, but you had to admit Paul Bearer passing away. What he did was probably a good, perfect timing, if anything, for someone to pass away for during this feud. Again, I did not wish death upon anybody, but you got to admit that was actually perfect timing for that because it made the feud more personal when CM Punk started, referring to Paul Bearer's passing and piss Undertaker off even more. So that made it a lot more personal, and I legit thought maybe, just maybe, after the whole 434-day reign that he had as champion, maybe CM Punk could have been the one to end the streak. Unfortunately, he did not, and the Undertaker came out victorious, extending the streak to 21-0. We all know what happened after that. Up next was a no disqualification match between Brock Lesnar and Triple H, where if Triple H lost, he would have to end his in-ring career. I mean, Triple H was basically already at this point a part-timer already. He only wrestled at WrestleMania around this time. So there really was no point in adding that stipulation. I guess it was pretty much just a way to give Triple H his win back because he did win here. Brock Lesnar defeated him at SummerSlam the prior year. And then he also had Shawn Michaels in his corner, who Brock Lesnar had broke his arm, a while back. So this is pretty much Triple H getting his win back. They did have a rematch the following month at Extreme Rules in the Steel Cage, where Brock Lesnar won. I guess to end the series one and one apiece, and so yeah. Not the best Triple H match, not the best Brock Lesnar match. Of course, Triple H is one of my favorites of all time, but it's probably not one of his best matches. So, but don't worry, we'll fix that up. And then in the main event, it was twice in a lifetime, even though it was supposed to be once in a lifetime the previous year when The Rock and John Cena faced each other. But no, they had to go and do a rematch, and they have to get John Cena his win back. This is around the time when I was like a huge John Cena troll, and I'll admit, yeah, I just like rag on John Cena, just rag on him and rag on him and rag on him. Has he gained my respect now? Yes, but back then I was just like I was one of those guys just like to just talk so much shit about John Cena because he was pushing him all the time. It was always main event, John Cena, John Cena, John Cena. So yeah, this match was not as good as the match they had the year prior. It was a little bit worse because The Rock tore his pec like 5 minutes into the match. I don't know how the hell he made it through, but yeah. So in the end, John Cena won. There was like it just wasn't, it didn't live up to the hype as the previous year because the last year they had the whole build up, they had all the promos against each other, they just had that legit, that it felt like legit tension against each other. They had the video hypes, they had the special entrances at WrestleMania the following year. This year they just like came out and that was it, nothing special, nothing extravagant. It was just like I said, a way to give John Cena his win back. So yeah, so that was WrestleMania 29. Again, it didn't really have that WrestleMania vibe, aside from like the whole aesthetic and feeling of it. The card, like I said, that could have been like a random episode of Monday Night Raw for all you know, and you wouldn't have guessed it was WrestleMania. So maybe I shouldn't have woke up my dad that night to pay the cable bill, but what can you do? And so, with that being said, let's go ahead and see how I would have booked this WrestleMania, of course. So, kicking things off on the pre-show, we would had a 8-person tag team match between the team of Team Rhodes Scholars, which consisted of Cody Rhodes and Damian Sandow, teaming with the Bella Twins to take on Cameron, Naomi, Tensai, and Brodus Clay. If you recall or not, this match was actually supposed to take place on the main card in the original timeline we're having here, but it got cut from the show because they ran over time. Some of the matches went too long, so they had to cut the match completely from the card, and then they ended up having it the next night on WrestleMania, which kind of sucks because every wrestler's dream is to compete at WrestleMania. So, and then to the last minute here, or you can't have your match because we ran out of time. There's no time for it. It kind of sucks. It kind of blows no matter who you are. Um, of course, this match is pretty much on the bottom of the importance totem pole when it came to this night. So obviously, it got cut. Um, but in this timeline that I have, I would have had that match take place during the pre-show. Why they consider that match on the main card over the Intercontinental title would be on me. But hey, I'm not the one booking the shit. So yeah, I would have had that match on the pre-show, and I would have gave the win to the babyface team of Tensai and Brodus Clay and the Funkadactyls. I would have given them the babyface win to get the crowd in happy mood, ready for WrestleMania. Yeah, I would have left that match on the pre-show. That's probably where it should have been. If even on WrestleMania in the first place, it probably shouldn't have been. But hey, if you're gonna do something like that, leave it on the pre-show. That's probably what I would have done. So going on to the main card, we're gonna kick things off with my personal favorite. And if you watch these videos, you already know where I'm going at. My personal favorite, the multi-man ladder match. Of course, I love ladder matches, especially multi-man ones. So we're gonna go open the show with a multi-man match, ladder match for the United States Championship, a title which was not even defended on this show. So in this match, I would have had the champion, who was Cesaro at the time, defending against Kofi Kingston, who was didn't compete, was on the pre-show as an interviewer. Mark Henry, Sin Cara, Zack Ryder, Sheamus, Jack Swagger, and Alberto Del Rio. Of course, we're taking them out of the world title picture because neither one of them deserves to be there at this point. And we're going to put them in the ladder match for the United States Championship. And in this match, I would have gave the win to Kofi Kingston just to give him his first WrestleMania moment. Kicked us off of a nice hot babyface win. And there you go. Kofi Kingston wins, becomes United States champion once again. Up next, I would have had, we're going to keep the Fandango and Chris Jericho, same match, same build-up, same victory. We're going to keep that match, but as the cool-down match after the ladder match. So we're going to give the win to Fandango still and keep their little rivalry going on. Coming up next would have been the Intercontinental title between Wade Barrett and The Miz. We're moving it from the pre-show to the main card, where it probably should have been in the first place. So we're going to kick it in their little third spot right there. Up next would have been a six-man tag team match, mixing up a little bit different. The Shield taking on this time the team of Kane, Daniel Bryan, and Randy Orton. This means the tag titles did not get defended, but the Shield was kind of feuding with Kane and Daniel Bryan when they first started, so this will be the combination. And then we have Randy Orton, who doesn't have really much else going on. So pretty much the six-man tag match that opened up WrestleMania, and this timeline is more in the middle of the card. So it's two different. I think Kane and Daniel Bryan probably would have been better teammates, and probably gave a better match than with Big Show against the Shield. So I think that match probably could have been a good Soul Stealer, maybe even match of the night. But we'll never know. Up next is the World Heavyweight Championship. This is where things get more different now. The Big Show will be defending the World Heavyweight title against Ryback. So in the main timeline, as you recall, the Big Show lost the world title to Alberto Del Rio on a random episode of SmackDown. They had a last man standing rematch at the Royal Rumble. Alberto Del Rio won. And then from a last man standing, they had a regular world title match at Elimination Chamber. Del Rio won and went on to have his rivalry with Jack Swagger. In this timeline, the Big Show does not lose the title to Alberto Del Rio. He'll probably challenge him for the title at the Royal Rumble, but Big Show will still win. But in this timeline, Ryback wins the Royal Rumble instead of John Cena, because I really thought he was going to win it, and I really thought he was going to go after the Big Show for the title. And then they switched things up. They had Alberto win the title, and then John Cena won the Royal Rumble, and it kind of got all mumbled from there. Especially was Ryback's whole thing was him, doing the amazing feats of strength. And I think it would have been a good WrestleMania moment to hit that self-shock on the Big Show. So yeah, so in this timeline, Ryback wins the Royal Rumble instead of John Cena, and goes on to challenge the Big Show for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania. Would it have been a 5-star classic? No. Would it have been 3-4 stars? Maybe not. But I think this is one of those that's probably a little bit more spectacle than it is work rate, pretty much. I mean, just for the this would have probably been one of those WrestleMania moments that replay over and over, like how Hulk Hogan slammed Andre the Giant. They replay the moment Ryback shell shot the Big Show at WrestleMania. Of course, I would give the win to Ryback, who was very over at this time, and I feel they probably should have pulled the trigger on him to win a world title at least once. If anything, the world title, because like I said, at this time it was a glorified Intercontinental title. So they probably should have gave him at least one reign with that title at this point, but they didn't, and then they turned him heel right after. They had him feud with John Cena, and after that, he pretty much didn't do too much of note anyway. So yeah. So coming up next, we have the Undertaker. This time, instead of going against CM Punk, he will be going against Dolph Ziggler. Now, Dolph Ziggler was another one who was very over at this point in time because if we recall, the night after WrestleMania, when he cashed in the Money in the Bank contract, that crowd went crazy. I remember watching it live on TV. The crowd went absolutely nuts for Dolph Ziggler cashing in his Money in the Bank contract. So I think Undertaker, like I said, many people believe Undertaker has better matches against smaller opponents who can actually work. I think Dolph Ziggler would have been perfect for that, and I could actually like picture the build up to it. Dolph Ziggler trying to say he's not afraid of the Undertaker. Undertaker could have done some of his Ministry Day magic and like possessed Big E to talk in his voice or something like that. I think it could have been done really well, and it would have gave Dolph Ziggler that one-on-one WrestleMania match that he didn't have until 2020 when he did finally have a one-on-one match at WrestleMania. And by that time, like the bloom was off the rose, as they say. I think at this point, when Dolph Ziggler was probably at his most peak popularity wise, I think would have been the perfect time to give him that WrestleMania moment and match, and I think he would have been great going against the Undertaker. I could have seen this match go playing out similar to how his match with CM Punk was. Very good in ring work because Dolph Ziggler was a good hand in the ring, and I was always a fan of him. So I can see again Undertaker probably having another good WrestleMania match on his resume with Dolph Ziggler. So of course I'm gonna give the win to Undertaker to keep the streak going. Up next we have a Hell in a Cell match between Brock Lesnar and Triple H. Yes, they fought on the main timeline, but in this one, instead of just having a regular no disqualification match, which they pretty much did already at SummerSlam, we're gonna up the ante and make it a Hell in a Cell. Because of course, when they first faced at SummerSlam, I was kind of excited to see it because we had never seen Brock Lesnar and Triple H go one-on-one. At this point in time, of course, they're way past their primes already. Well, Triple H was anyway. So the match wasn't all that great. I think with the Hell in the Cell surrounding it, probably would have been a lot more better. Of course, I'm going to give the win to Triple H to put the series at one apiece, and then they did it anyway. So then going on to the main event, we have what everyone thought the main event should have been, and that is a triple threat match between The Rock, John Cena, and CM Punk. Yes, I really believe, just like everyone else, CM Punk should have been a part of that main event. If he did, the timeline, as you know, it probably would have been a whole lot different. He might not have walked out the following year. Who knows? But like they say, sometimes the obvious choice is the best one, and this was definitely one of them. I stand by it. CM Punk should have been in the main event of WrestleMania 29 as a triple threat match. In this timeline, of course, he faces The Rock, loses the title at the Royal Rumble. They have the rematch, Elimination Chamber. Then John Cena, who hasn't won the Royal Rumble in this timeline, instead wins the Elimination Chamber to become number one contender. CM Punk still wants his title back and his WrestleMania main event. So that match they had on Raw, that was really, really good. They still have that match. If CM Punk wins, he has added to the main event of WrestleMania. That match they had probably could have ended in like a quick draw or something, which would lead to the triple threat match, of course, that everybody wanted to see. That should have happened. Or hell, if anything, if he really wanted to, CM Punk could have defeated The Rock at the Royal Rumble, kept his title for a little bit longer, and then had a rematch with The Rock at Elimination Chamber, and was somehow again able to just barely slip through, maybe with accidental interference from John Cena, which should have led to The Rock wanting another match with John Cena getting in his way. John Cena having The Rock having history together, that could have led to CM Punk defending the title against both men in a triple threat match. But in this time around, we're going with The Rock as champion, CM Punk as the challenger, because not only does he give him his first WrestleMania main event, it also gives him his first WrestleMania World Championship match. So yeah, that's my choice would have been for WrestleMania 29's main event. Like as everyone else said, it probably should have been that way anyway, and it probably would have been a lot better show than what we got. So yeah. So there you go. That's how I would have booked WrestleMania 29. What are your thoughts? Did you like what the WWE gave us? Did you like what I gave you? Which was better? Which would you have? What would you have changed? What would you have done differently? Or would you left it how it was? I'm always open to hearing your feedback and your comments. Of course, all feedback is welcome, negative, positive. I like to hear it, and we'll go from there. So that's that WrestleMania. We'll see you again next week for WrestleMania 30. We're almost there to this year's 42, but if we keep the schedule, we'll get there maybe in about a month or so. But yeah, that's how I would have done WrestleMania 29. Yeah, so let me know what you think. So until next time, if you haven't asked me about it, chances are I'm going to talk about it anyway.